Good morning. This is Black Crow Walking from Australia, bringing you A Course of Love by Mari Perron. This is a study that we're doing, and you can join us anytime, any week, any day, because no matter where you start, you will get something out of it. It's amazing. We're up to chapter 6, verse 19 today. Think about this now. How could heaven be a separate place? A piece of geography, distinct from all the rest? How could it not encompass everything and still be what it is? Home to God's beloved Son and dwelling place of God Himself. It is because God is not separate from anything that you cannot be. Because God's inside you. So that's where heaven is. How good is that? If you want geography, it's inside you. It is because God is not separate from anything that heaven is where you are. It is because God is love that all your relationships are holy. And from them, you can find the way to Him and to your holy self. Are your relationships with those you love severed when they leave this world? I don't think so. Do you still think of them? Yep. And do you not still think of them as who they were in life? What is the difference in your mind between what is the difference in your mind between who they were and who they are after death? In honesty, will you admit envy or awareness that they still exist? And without the pain and the burden of the body, without the limits placed upon those who remain. You imagine them still in bodily form, perhaps, yet you imagine them happy and at peace. Even those who claim not to believe in God or an afterlife of any sort will, when prompted to be truthful, admit this is an image that lights their mind with peace and hope. This image is as ancient as the earth and sky and all that lies beyond it. It did not rise from fantasy, nor did it pass from one mind to the next as stories often will. But it is part of your awareness of who you are, an awareness you would deny in favour of thoughts of death, so grim they make a life a nightmare. I'm finding this fascinating because, number one, there is this group mentality that has been passed down from centuries and centuries that heaven is out there somewhere and that we have to somehow attain it by being a good person, by doing service. By going to church on Sundays. Not for me. Not for me. I've done that road, I've done that path, I've done that brain programming, and it didn't work for me because I was suffering. And I don't have to suffer now because heaven is here right now and I'm creating it. I'm co-creating it with love, which for me is guidance of divinity. How could it not encompass everything and still be what it is? Home to God's beloved Son and dwelling place of God Himself, which is all inside me. It's not outside me, anywhere. Well, that's not true. when you realize that love or God is inside you, you see it everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in everything. It is because God is not separate from anything that you cannot be separate from anything. That's why we join. That's why we are joined. We are joined because we are not separate from anything. And that's why relationship is so important. Because we are joined in relationship. It is because God is love that all relationships are holy. Have you ever thought of yourself as holy? If you're living in Australia, you'd be torn down with the tall poppy syndrome very quickly. But what if you were willing to just for a moment see yourself as holy? What would that feel like for you? What would it be like? What would it look like? What an exciting adventure to just for today or just for this moment see yourself as holy. See your relationships as holy. See the people around you as holy. Because God or love is within them. It is because God is love that all your relationships are holy. And from them, you can find the way to Him and your holy self. When you are joined with love, or with God, or with guidance of divinity, whatever you want to call it, when you are joined with that, you are in relationship with that. Despite the fact that you don't know it most of the time. Now I have a problem. I have a problem because my battery's low and I have to go and find my charger. So I'm going to just pause it here. Oh, that was a bit close for call. Nearly died, my computer. But anyway, we're alive. Okay. Are your relationships with those you love severed when they leave this world? Is that why we grieve? Because we think we've lost someone? In essence, we have lost them. In reality, we've lost them. But have we? If we remember that we are holy beings in relationship with God, with love, that love never dies for the people that leave their bodies, does it? We're actually a formless being inside this body. That's what we are. And they've just left their dysfunctional body behind because it's gotten too old or sick. Lucky them. But also lucky us, because this life that we've been given on earth is so precious and so delicious and so heavenly if you create it that way. Do you not still think of them after they have died? And do you not still think of them as who they were in life? Do you think they've changed? Do you think they've suddenly got enlightened? Doesn't work that way. Our opportunity is here now to be exactly who we are, which is love. It doesn't change when you die. You still have to learn that. What is the difference in your mind between who they were and who they are after death? In honesty, will you admit an envy and awareness that they will exist, but without the pain and burden of the body, without the limits placed upon those who remain? You imagine them still in bodily form. Let's read that again. What is the difference in your mind between who they were and who they are after death? What's the difference in your mind? You hear that? Mind, not heart, not here. What's the difference in your mind? Your mind's still trying to figure it out all the time. That's what the mind does. Give it a rest. In honesty, will you admit an envy, an awareness that they still exist, but without the pain and the burden of the body, without the limits placed upon those who remain? Well, that's interesting. In honesty, will you admit an envy and awareness that they still exist? Where do they exist? They exist in the formless. They don't have to deal with arthritis or heart disease or dysfunctional bodies that they created, that I created. But they're without pain and the burden of the body. They're without limits placed upon them by those who remain. Were you placing limits on that person, or are you doing it now? Are you placing limits on that person now? I know one of the stages of grief is anger that they're not here. What if we could celebrate? Celebrate the release from the body that's not working. Release from the pain. What if we could celebrate that? You imagine them still in bodily form, perhaps, yet you imagine them happy and at peace. Even those who claim not to believe in God or in an afterlife of any sort, when prompted to be truthful, admit this is an image that lights their mind with peace and hope. This image is as ancient as the earth and the sky, and all that lies beyond it. It did not arise from fantasy, nor did it pass from one mind to the next, as stories often will. It is but a part of your awareness of who you are, an awareness you would deny in favour of thoughts of death so grim that they make of life a nightmare. Are you making of life a nightmare? Are you wanting death to end it all? What if you could create life to be a holy experience? One where you create heaven on earth and you live love fully. And that you see those that have passed released into the formless and still love, still holy beings, except they don't have the burden of a painful body. Let's take our dense energy bodies that are gravitated on the earth and dance and skip and enjoy life today in the lightness of being, in the lightness of love, in the lightness of knowing we are formless. Let's be today this light being light, not heavy, not full of shoulds and shouldn'ts, rights, wrong, good, bad, fear of death. None of that. Just really live today as a precious moment of now. That's where the lightness is. That's where the true happiness is, in this moment of now. I love you. Until we meet tomorrow, bye for now.